Good evening, everybody. I welcome you once again to the day 4 of the execution room. You are all welcome. All right, so we'll be starting immediately. Please note that this program is being recorded and we are expected to mute your mic to avoid distractions. Okay, so very quickly, our guest for tonight is Miss Godsglory Ifezue, the founder of Glory Ifezue Foundation. It's an honor to have you around. We are so blessed and we appreciate your presence with us this evening. Okay, so we'll be starting immediately. Thank you so much.
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good evening. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. It's a pleasure to be here. So let's get right into it. I think, let me see, how many are we in the meeting? We're 7 people. Great. So it's going to be a very interactive class. Well, what I've been told to talk about today is on good governance and leadership. And as we all know, good governance and leadership is very critical to any nation. So the class will be as interactive as possible, and it means that I'm not the only one who's going to be talking. We're all going to be engaging. We're all going to be talking. Okay, so we're going to start. Before I go into my notes, I like to get a feel of where we're at in terms of knowledge, how much we know. I think governance and leadership are topics that everybody has 1 or 2 ideas about. So I'd like to start with 1 or 2 questions. So let me start by asking for 1 or 2 persons to, in their own words, define what they understand by good governance. If you have an answer, you could please just raise your digital hand. I think the hand button is somewhere down there. If you could just raise your hand and let's share ideas, what your thoughts are on good governance. Anyone? Should I pick people? Because I will not be the only one talking. So where do we start? We have to be engaging. Anybody who wants to go before I volunteer people. Okay, let's see. Mr. Kelvin, what do you think good governance means, or how would you define good governance in your own words? Mr. Kelvin, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Kevin. I'm from Nigeria.
Nice to meet you, Kelvin.
What I understand by good governance / leadership, that good governance, of course, has to do with what the people you are leading want. What do they want? That's the people's choice.
Okay.
So you have to work with the people. So when you are working with the people and you are meeting up with the standard with what the people want, I guess you are doing the right thing. The people will be happy that you are leading them well. So because leadership is solely on the choice of people. If you are not leading well, the people will complain. If you are leading right, there will be no problem. So I think when you are leading people, you have to listen to all the floor members to know what they need what to do and what not to do. That's my own
Absolutely. That's a very good definition. Thank you very much, Calvin. That's an all-encompassing definition. Is there anyone else that wants to add to Kelvin's definition? Or should I volunteer somebody else? Fumi Layo, what's your take on good governance? Is Fumi Layo online?
Continue.
Fumi Layo, are you there, or you want to pass up on the answer? Okay. Now let's talk about bad governance. Is there anyone who would like to define what bad governance is? Like I said, this would be a very interactive class. I think it would help if we can all engage so that it becomes more practical and more enjoyable that way, as opposed to having one person talking. So any volunteers to tell us what bad governance is and whether we have good governance in Nigeria? Why you would say we have or do not have good governance in Nigeria? Any takers? Let's see, who do we volunteer now? Kelvin, your hand is up, all right. Please give us your views.
Okay, thank you. I think that in Nigeria we have bad governance.
Okay.
Reason is that, like I've said before, have good governance for it to be to govern your people very well. You have to meet up with what the people want. That's number one thing of being a leader.
Yeah.
Because you are leading others. And in Nigeria now, why I say that we have bad governance is because there's no part of the country that you go to, people will not complain. It's either they complain of food, increase in price of foodstuff, increase in fuel price, and others, many other things they complain of. So the economy is not going well. So, but why there's bad governance is that the government are not looking forward to what can we actually do to make the youth be productive. Like for instance, after school, what next? After school, what do we have for youth? Nothing.
Yeah.
So, and they don't actually look into that. There is no industries to put in. There is many graduates coming out every year.
Yeah.
But there's no place to fix them. And they are not actually looking into that. So I don't think, and people are also complaining about that, and they are not listening to the people. For instance, let's take the answers protest, for instance. The youth are demanding for police to stop at police brutality and bad governance.
Yeah.
But instead of the government looking into that, they are still, even the day they are protesting, the police are still brutalizing the youth. So they don't listen to the youth. That's, I think, we have bad governance.
Okay. Thank you very much, Kelvin. Thank you for your very illuminating answer. So from Kelvin's answer, I think it's safe to say that we all have an idea of what good governance and leadership are. Now, the two are not exactly synonymous, so we're going to separate them in this discussion. So let's start with the definition of governance. I think Kelvin has done a good job of giving us a good definition of governance. One definition from the International Bureau of Education website defines it as referring to structures and processes that are designed to ensure accountability, transparency, responsiveness, the rule of law, stability, equity and inclusiveness, empowerment, and broad-based participation. So when we talk about governance, governance is more than just running a country. It's more than just being president. Governance includes putting in place everything to ensure that the entire framework and it's not just for countries, even organizations, for example, even corporations, any sector of society has something we call governance. Now, the governance I'll be talking about is in relation to a nation, because I think that's the angle that we're supposed to take it from. So the governance of a nation means putting in place all the structures that would ensure that there's inclusivity, that would ensure that there's stability, there's security, there's transparency, there's the rule of law, there is empowerment. You talked about the youths feeling disenfranchised. That's a very important aspect of governance that needs to be looked into. And broad-based participation, meaning that every sector of society does not feel included in decision making. In our context in Nigeria, it would be tribe, it would be religious groups, it would be vulnerable groups, it would be marginalized groups. So all those people feeling included in the running of the nation Nigeria, all of that is what comes together to form governance and good governance. So in the broad sense, you could say that governance is about the culture and institutional environment in which citizens and stakeholders interact among themselves and participate in public affairs. So a cultural institutional environment, and if you put it that way, then you have to ask yourself, is corruption now an integral part of governance in Nigeria? Because there is a culture of corruption. There's almost an institutional environment. If you're not speaking, please mute your mic. There's also an institutional environment that enables corruption in Nigeria. So if we define governance as a cultural and institutional environment in which citizens and stakeholders interact amongst themselves and participate in public affairs, then we have to ask these questions. So good governance is an approach to government that is committed to creating a system founded on justice and peace that protects individuals, human rights, and civil liberties. Now you have to ask the question, why is there governance? Why do we need governance? What provides the impetus for governance? Who gives the right for governance? And the basis for governance comes from what we call in jurisprudence in law, we call it the social contract. Now, this social contract is a theory that has been propounded by jurists like John Locke, Thomas Hobbes, and Jacques Rousseau. Now, what the social contract basically is saying is that we as people in a society, like in a group of people now, we come together and we say, okay, as a group of people in society, we each have an equal stake, an equal right in that society. So we can govern ourselves. We can just decide we don't want anybody. We just want to rule ourselves. Every man will be a law unto himself. But the social contract says that we then come together as society and say, no, but that's not going to work. That's going to make things complicated. That's going to make things unworkable. There's going to be lawlessness everywhere if every single person has to decide that will be a law to themselves. So what we will do is that we're going to come together as society. We're going to pick one person. We're going to ask that one person to we're going to ask this one person to be our leader. And this one person being our leader means that we would agree to the leadership style. We would go with anything they say, and in return, so that's our own side, their own side of the bargain. You know how a contract is? A contract is two parties agree. So when we do a social contract, we say, okay, you you one person, we are agreeing that you would lead us, and we agree that you will lead us because you have convinced us that you have our best interest at heart and that you're going to do things in a way that favors all of us. So we give you the mandate, lead us as a leader, as a servant. You're not our master. You are leading us. We gave you the authority. In return, we would respect the good laws that you make, and we will also make contributions if we need to. If there are any requirements of us to make sure that our society works, we'll do that. So that's the social contract. And the social contract is the reason why we have elections. If there was no social contract, there would be no need for our leaders to come every 4 years to ask for us to renew their mandate so that they can keep ruling us. It's because of the social contract that we then have elections that say, okay, we are going to elect you. And because they understand that they need to get our mandate, this is why they pay to buy votes, because they want you to give them the mandate. They know that once you give them that authority, whatsoever they do in that 4 years, you have to obey it because that's your side of the contract. So this is where the whole concept of governance comes from, is that we have come together as society and we have said, you, by giving you the power, put together the institutions, put together the processes to make sure that our society runs well. So that provides the impetus, that provides the basis for governance, the social contract. And so when we have leaders that are not behaving well, when we have leaders that are not doing as they should do, they are violating that mandate that we're giving them, they are violating the social contract. And that's where bad governance then comes in. But good governance is they are acting right, they are behaving the way they should behave. So that's good governance, and that's the basis, the foundation, the reason why we talk about governance in any society, in any organization. Now, what are the indicators of good governance? What do you see in a society, in Nigeria now? And Kelvin has given us a good example when he mentioned the NSAS movement, for example, and the response of the government. That's not an example of a good government. So what do we see to then say, okay, this is a good government. Okay, this government is behaving in a way that we can say they are trying. Maybe they are not perfect, but they are trying. And according to the United Nations, there are 8 markers or 8 indicators of good governance. And I'm just going to go through them. The first one is participation. When we talk of participation, we mean that everybody in that society. So if you have Black people are included in decision making. You don't have, so let's use America, for example, now, where you have white people, Black people, Latinos, Mexicans, you name it, Asian Americans. So a participatory government is one that you have all of these different people groups represented. There's no decision that you're going to take that would exclude anyone. At the decision-making table, all the people groups that are in that society are at that table and making that decision. So for example, in Nigeria now, we have diverse ethnic groups, tribes. A participatory government would mean that at every decision-making point, you have representatives of these different ethnic groups, of these different tribal groups. Do we have that? Yes, we do have that. If you look at the Constitution of Nigeria, it says that there's a National Assembly. So now the National Assembly is one of the arms of government. We have decided that to make up our government, we have something called judiciary. The judiciary are those who implement the laws, who interpret the laws. And we have made up a legislature, National Assembly. They are the ones that pass the laws. So they are the ones that know that, okay, my people in this area, these are their needs. And because these are their needs, I will push the agenda that these needs are covered in the laws that are passed. So that's the National Assembly. And the executive is in charge of making sure that things run in the state. all arms of state: security, water, light, the people that ensure and execute and see to it that we have light on a daily basis, that we have running water, that we have security. That's the executive arm of the government. So now, talking about, and I digress. I digress to make the point about participation. Now, participation, I remember I said that participation means that there's equal representation of the diverse people groups in a country. Now, how do we have participation in our government? In the National Assembly, there are 360 house. Can you please mute yourself? In the National Assembly, there are 360 House of Representatives seats. And that's because we have a lot of people groups. We have 774 local governments. Now, in ensuring that all those people groups in the 774 local governments are well represented, we then decided to come up with an allocation of seats in the National Assembly that would ensure that every group is somehow represented, so that when the National Assembly is passing laws, it is such that the representatives of all groups can then bring to the table the needs and desires of their people. Because remember that we're 2 billion people in Nigeria or more. We can't have all those 2 billion people at the decision-making table. And that is why, to make the process easier, we then decided to have representatives of these people groups. So that is participation. That is one good indicator of good government. So you can say that in Nigeria, we have this indicator of good governance. We have a participator, or in paper, in theory, we have participatory mechanism that ensures that different people groups are taken care of. That's number one indicator. Number two indicator is the rule of law. Now, what does the rule of law mean? The rule of law means that there's an even-handed application of the law in a country. It means that if Mr. A breaks the law, if Mr. A violates the principle of law, let's say, for example, we have said it in our law, you cannot be corrupt. You cannot steal government money. You cannot appropriate money that you're supposed to use to help people for your own personal use, right? Now, Mr. A takes money and puts in his personal pocket. But because Mr. A is maybe a senator, because Mr. A maybe works in the ministry somewhere, we'll just let him get away with it. That's not the rule of law. The rule of law says, regardless of who Mr. A is, he could be the president, provided that he violated a law that we as a people said we do not want. Then Mr. A is responsible. Mr. A must face the full penalty of the law. That is the rule of law. You find it in operation in places like the United States, for example, where Donald Trump misbehaved according to the American people, and they called for his impeachment. The American people said, we don't want this guy, not all of them, some of them, but the point is that it did not matter that he was the president. They could do that because they respected the rule of law. They respected their constitution. Do you understand? So that is, when you see a society that respects the law like that, you say that that society is a good governance society, a society that is an example of good governance. We have that in Nigeria. I think we all know the answers to that question. So I would leave you to think about that, but there's nothing to think about. I think, let's call black. There's no rule of law in Nigeria. The law is for the poor people. The rich people decide whether or not they want to be governed by the law. And that's bad. That's not the rule of law. So we are not a country that can be regarded as an example of good governance because we fail woefully when it comes to the rule of law. The third indicator of good governance is transparency. Now, transparency means that, for example, a contract is awarded. And transparency is very important, for example, in procurement. Procurement is giving tenders, giving contracts. Let's say the government wants to build the road today and they award a contract. Transparency means that we can go back and say, okay, this person that you gave the contract, What were you looking at when you gave them that contract? Were they qualified? And if you say they were qualified, show us how you say they are qualified. That's transparency. But everything is shrouded in secrecy in Nigeria, for example. When you have to award contracts, when the government is awarding contracts, do people know about it? In fact, before the contract is awarded, people they've already given it to their friends. They've given it to a couple of people. That's not transparency. That's not a government that that can be regarded as good government. So transparency is important. Nothing should be shrouded in secrecy. Everything should be open. If I go to the government website, I should be able to see, okay, on so and so date, this contract was awarded to this company. This is the company. This is what they have. This is what they submitted for us to award them that contract. And these are the number of other people that were competing. And this is why they succeeded above the rest. That's transparency. Do we have that in Nigeria? We do not. The number four indicator of good governance is responsiveness. Responsiveness means responding to issues within a reasonable time frame. If somebody complains today, if we complain and say, we're not happy with the government, worry, what are you doing? Your governor of the state, okay, what are you doing? Local government chairman, what are you doing? Okay, local government chairman will not come and start saying, who are you set to be asking me that question? Who do you think you are? Forgetting that we put them there. We have the right to ask that question. A responsive government will say, oh, I'm sorry that you feel this way. How can I help? What's your issue? A responsive government will try to understand where the shoes are pinching and how they can help. And not only where, but how, and actually go out to find that solution and offer the solution. That's a responsive government. So for example, when COVID-19 hit, I think all over the world, governments of the world had to respond. They had to act quickly so that the pandemic does not wipe out the entire population. So in that way, that's responsiveness, responding to issues within a reasonable time frame. Do we have responsiveness in Nigeria? Again, you can agree with me that we do not, because when we have issues, our government will take years. In fact, they will not even answer ourselves. They'll just look at you and it will be like you're not talking. That's not responsive government. Consensus oriented is the number 5 indicator of good governance. Now, what consensus oriented means is that when there are different needs and perspectives and expectations of different people groups in a country, you try to mediate, okay? Perfect example is restructuring, right? So let's look at restructuring. Most people groups in Nigeria today are saying, let's restructure Nigeria. This country is not working. Now, what consensus orientation means is that our leaders will come to the drawing board, come to the table, call a confab. I think there was a confab in 2014, 2015. Call a conference, bring all those people groups to the table, try to hear what they are saying. Okay, the West is saying want to be divided. The East is saying wants to be divided. The North is saying the North is probably not. Whatever they are saying, ask them, why are you saying this? What is your grievance? And try to mediate, to say, okay, you feel this way because of what, hear them out. And then try and reach a decision that factors in all the people group. That is consensus orientation. That is one indicator, number 5 indicator of good governance. And I don't know that we have that in Nigeria, because we seem to have a domination, and that's not right. Equity and inclusiveness. Equity and inclusiveness means that wealth is divided in a fair and just and equitable manner. You don't have one part of the nation enjoying the national cake to the exclusion of the other groups. Every people group in the country has an equal share to the national cake. That is equity and inclusiveness. You don't dominate. One group does not dominate the other. Everybody enjoys equally. We do not have that. Number 7, efficiency and effectiveness. I'll just run through this quickly because of time. Efficiency and effectiveness means that you use our resources sustainably to ensure that all the demands of society are met. You don't abuse the resources. You don't siphon it and put it in your own personal pocket. And then all of us who are going hungry, there's hunger in the land. And that's what's affecting us in Nigeria today. We are a very rich country, very rich. We have resources, but these resources are not being used effectively and efficiently to meet the demands and needs of the Nigerian society. And that is why we still live in poverty. More than 60% of Nigerians are living in poverty because we have a government that is bad. We have a government that is refusing to use our resources to meet the needs of Nigerians. And finally, and the most important one, all of these factors and indicators are important, but number 8 is critical: accountability. A good government is one that is accountable to the people. A good government does not kill people when they ask questions. NSAS, people were asking questions. The youth came out and said, we are tired. We are tired of police brutality. Do something. They were marching peacefully. They said, we want you to end police brutality. We want you to end bad governance. Now, the government that's accountable will listen, will sit down and say, okay, where do you think we've gone wrong? This is how we are going to, we're open. We agree. We've done wrong. We have not been accountable. And this is how we're going to fix it. You're accountable to the people. We put you there for goodness sake. You have no right to say we cannot ask you questions. But what we have in Nigeria today is a government that refuses to be asked questions. A government that when you ask them a question, they take offense and they tell you that young people don't have respect for elders. What has that got to do with governance? Elders or no elders, you owe us an explanation. We put you there. We gave you the mandate. Now, if Nigerians can understand this governance at this level, I think we will stop taking a lot of things at once. Because we should understand that our leaders are not doing us a favor. No, we gave them the authority. We gave them the mandate. They are answerable to us. And that means that we must always demand accountability. It's a right. It's a right that you as a Nigerian have because you gave them the mandate on the basis of the social contract. These 8 indicators make up good governance. And any other where a government acts in the opposite direction, that's bad governance. The other indicators are political stability, absence of violence, regulatory quality, having a good regulation, and control of corruption. Where you don't have these things, ladies and gentlemen, you have a very bad government. And I think we can all agree that we are still suffering all of this. There's a lot of insecurity, there's violence, even by state agencies. Corruption is everywhere. It's the order of the day in Nigeria, in every single sector, even down to the cleaners, even down to the people who clean the road. They want you to pay them money. That's how endemic a problem corruption has become in Nigeria. Now, we've talked about the markers of indicators of good governance, sorry. Do we have examples of good governance in Africa? I don't want to go to the West because the West is like comparing apples and bananas. Let's come to our own Africa like this now. Let's look at our brothers and sisters in this continent. Are there people that are actually doing things right in Africa? Because if they are, then why are we not in Nigeria? We are in the same continent. We are the same skin color. We are the same brothers and sisters. Why do we have people who are doing well and we're not as Nigeria? We have Botswana. Botswana is a perfect example of good governance in Africa. South Africa is another good example. Mauritius is another good example. I'll use Botswana as an example because it's one that I know of. In Botswana, for example, you would not believe it, but they still have free education up to university level. These are people that their main source of, their main national, what do you call this? The source of their income in their nation is diamonds. From the time that they got independence until today. The age difference between Nigeria and Botswana is 6 years, 5 to 6 years. Now, that's a small country, yes, but they have managed their resources in such a way to ensure that every single citizen, the moment you are born and you are declared a citizen, you are entitled to free education from primary school to university, free. And when you get to university, they'll be giving you monthly allowance for going to school as a student, every single citizen in that country. Why can't we do that? Free healthcare, government hospital, you don't pay. If you're a citizen, You go and you get good treatment. Good treatment. We're not talking of something where they will leave something in your stomach. You will get quality health care at a government facility free of charge. If you want to go private, that one is your own. You pay for yourself. But they've done it in such a way that anybody, the quality of life is so good. The poorest person in that country is richer than the poorest person in Nigeria. That is how good their government is. The government controls the standard of living. You cannot just build any house in that country and get away with it. They will come and inspect. If they see one thing that shows that it's not habitable for human being to stay in, okay, you cannot rent out that house to anybody. But in Nigeria, anybody builds a house, anybody can enter, there's no regulation. So this is one example that's working in Africa. And it's not that it cannot work in Nigeria, it's just that we don't want to do it. That's the problem of governance, is leadership, and that's the next thing that we're going to come to. So that's one example of governance, good governance in Africa. And just very quickly, the governance structure of Nigeria is, we have a written constitution, we have a federation. A federation is a division of power between the center and then different groups. So we have the federal government and we have the states. We have a written constitution that says the constitution is supreme. Everything that we do in Nigeria has to be governed by something we call the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The current edition of that constitution is the 1999 constitution as amended. So where we have failed as a government, as failings of governance in Nigeria, I think you can agree with me, we have failed in the only place of all the 8 indicators I gave you, the only place that we are doing well is in fact, even in participation, is questionable. It's questionable whether our lawmakers in the National Assembly are actually representing our interests, because it's one thing to put them there, it's another thing for them to actually do the work that you put them there for. So no, I don't think that we have good participation in fact, So let's say that Nigeria needs to fix all the markers of good governance. We need to start listening to people. We need to start obeying the rule of law. We need to start being transparent. We need to start being responsive, consensus-oriented, equity and inclusiveness, effectiveness and efficiency, and importantly, accountability. Now let's move to leadership very quickly, because the reason why we have bad governance in Nigeria is because there is bad leadership. So let me pause here. I've been speaking for over 30 minutes. Let me take 1 or 2 persons quickly. What would you define as leadership? What in your definition is leadership? Can we have any volunteers that can give us the definition, their definition of leadership, please? Any takers? Who is going to bail the cat out?
Okay, good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, Fumilayo. How are you?
I'm fine, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
In short, leadership is just the art of leading people.
Okay.
So you can either lead people aright, or you can lead people in the opposite way. So it's just the art of leading people or an organization.
Yes, thank you very much, Fumilayo. So that's leadership, is being able to galvanize people into action, being able to set a goal and say, okay, guys, you have said I should lead you. I think that we can do this as a group, we can go in this direction, and actually getting people to go in that direction. So how do you know a good leader? A good leader has influence. A good leader is able to, so a good leader doesn't have to force people to do something. Just because they have integrity. First of all, they have personal characteristics that make them good leaders. They have integrity, they are honest, they are transparent in their dealings, they treat people with respect. So because of these 4 qualities, integrity, transparency, honesty, and treating people with respect, they gain the trust of people. Now, when they gain the trust of the people they lead, then very easily they can ask the people to do something, and then the people will do it. Thank you, Israel. Leadership is the ability to influence people. Exactly, influence. To influence people, let me see that. To influence people to follow a given course of action. Exactly, thank you very much. So when you build influence by the way you interact and lead the people. Now, and and let me ask another question. In your in the little that you know of Nigerian politics and our history, do you think that we've had a good leader? What's your example of a good leader in your mind, and why do you say that they are good leaders? I think I'll take two people. Any two people who want to give us an example of who you think in Nigeria today or in the past was a good leader and why you say they're a good leader. Anyone? Mr. Beverly, I see you typed in the chat box. You want to say something? It'd be good to hear your voice. Sorry, I'm not sure. Sorry for assuming. Beverly, are you male or female? Let me not assume. Okay, Beverly is not speaking. Any other? Oh yes, Mr. Beverly, please, the floor is yours.
Okay.
Good evening. Oh, Miss. Oh, it's a lady. My apologies.
Yes.
Good evening. Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't really think guys, maybe our government, like a good governor in Nigeria, but looking at it, I can only mention like activists because they are like, sorry, because they are like people speaking out for us, like trying to protect our rights.
Right.
Like for example, what happened today? I don't actually know where the thing happened, but it was a scene. I watched a video where a comedian, Mr. Macroni, so he was like trying to defend a guy, like a policeman. I don't know what happened, but the policeman collected 30,000 naira from the guy illegally. So the comedian was trying to protect the guy and defending him. So I think he's a kind of a good leader because he's trying to protect the youth. Because I know the government will not say anything about it. But Mr. Macron is now like a leader now, trying to protect its citizens.
Wow.
So I think that's what I have to say.
Thank you very much, Beverly. I appreciate it. Hello, somebody else wants to speak? Mr. Rabi, do you want to tell us something? Looks like you're unmuted. Okay, so it's very sad to say the least that we can't even think of, we can't easily think of good leaders in Nigeria. And that says a lot about the quality of leaders that we have as a nation. So it shows that we have a lot of work to do. If we're thinking of good leaders and we're thinking of activists, we're not thinking of a governor, we're not thinking of any president, we're not thinking of any deputy governor or National Assembly. That tells us that our leaders have a lot of work to do. And because we don't have good leaders, we can't have good governance.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Rabiat.
Yes, Rabiat. Yes.
Yes. I really appreciate Camp for this meeting. It's really
Yes,
a light.
ma'am.
In this country, you have said it all. You don't have good leader, and it starts from individual. It starts from we as an individual. How do we lead in our house? How do we lead in our community? Between ourselves, is there transparency? Between ourselves, if they give you money, okay, between you people, share this money into two. Once the opponents are we not going to shit ourselves. So before it gets to the leaders, it starts with us. We as an individual in our community. And you also mentioned about the X sector. our health sector in Nigeria is let me say maybe 5% out of 100. Because before if you go to the government hospital, which they call maybe public hospital, if you go there, we see everything free, the specialists will attend to you. But now, as at Ali Mosho, if you want to give birth, let me just say normal SBD, not CS, normal SBD. Maybe it will be, or let me say maybe your money will be like 80. For instance, you buy this, you buy that, you buy this. Those that doesn't have access to it, I lecture some people about. I give a lecture about infant mortality. Those that doesn't have opportunity, that doesn't have access to it, that their financial status is low, that they are not wealthy. They can't have access to it, and they can't go to the private sector. Private hospital is more expensive.
Yeah.
And we want good health. Let me also use a case of Alimosho local government primary health center in Igondo here. Come and see their compound. Come and see the outside. If there is rain, as a mother, you want to take your kids to immunization, to collect vaccine for immunization, you have to step on water, enter water. How everything is bad. We just hope everything will be good. Everything is totally messed up. Maybe I should say because of my area, maybe because I study healthcare management. I'm studying healthcare management presently. The health facility is zero. I won't say from 20 I come down to zero. It's really bad. It's frustrating. It's frustrating. If you don't have money, you can't avoid good health.
Yeah.
So when you said maybe everybody, maybe people, if they are saying good health, this and that, to reduce infant mortality, to reduce mortality, there have to be good health. Our sector must be good, and we can do that in Nigeria. Our leaders can do that. Yeah. They have the money, they can do that. Yeah. It is not when they leave the country and go to the outside country. We can do that. Yeah. They can create the systems, but they are not looking into that. Since they know that they're exceptional. After all, if anything happens, any of their relatives, it is easy for them to fly them out to the country, to other country, and they get good care. The good care they get there, the approach, the manners they get there in taking care of them. Why don't them practice it here? Why don't them do the same here? Yeah. Please, that is what I will have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. I like your passion. This is the passion that we all need to get this country moving, start asking the right questions. And something that you said that I would also like to maybe correct, it's not their money, it's our money. Let's get that right. The money that our leaders are spending is not theirs to spend. It's our money as a nation for them to use to fix the country. So we need to start understanding that what is happening in Nigeria today is daylight robbery. Like, let's call a spade a spade. We are being robbed to feed the excesses of few people. We are being robbed as a country to keep lavish, to allow for people to live lavish lifestyles that they have no rights to be living, because that's money that should be used for the benefits of every single Nigerian. And it pains me. It really, really pains and annoys me. And so I'll ask us this question. What do you think then? How do we solve this problem? Because we have a serious problem in our hands. So if we do, and yes, people are scared to voice out, but the truth is we cannot live in fear. Why are we living in fear when we have the power is our own? We have given you power, and we're saying use the power the way you want it, or we take it back. Why are we afraid? We need to come together, and I'm just simply saying we need to start asking questions. We're not asking questions as Nigerians. We're just talking on Twitter. We're talking in our small corners. Nobody's actually going to the local government chairman, for example, say, Oga local government chairman, waiting this up. Why is the street like this? Why don't we have lights? People are collecting money from ticket drivers. You're collecting money. You're collecting taxes. Why are we not seeing anything? They have to answer you because you put them there. Do you understand? So these are things that we need to start. These are conversations we need to start having in our small groups, in our youth groups, in our communities, we need to start coming together to say, guys, this is not working. Let's start asking questions. So what kind of leader? Because yes, we're asking questions and we're saying there's no good leader in Nigeria. So does that mean we're doomed as a country? Does that mean that we don't have solution? What kind of leader do you think Nigeria needs to be? I think I would like to hear from all of us if it's possible. Let me see how many we are. We are 10 people. If you can just, I don't want us to speak for too long because we're also running out of time. Maybe 2 people, just what do you think? Looking at our situation, we have a situation on our hands. What kind of leader do you think Nigeria needs to be? What kind of leader do you think can make things right? If we're saying there are no good leaders, what's a good leader? What's an example? What kind of leader would make Nigeria good today? Who wants to go? Let's hear your voice. What do you think? Anyone? Let's see. Let's see what's in the chat box. Who wants to speak? I would like to hear your voices. Rabiu has spoken, Fumilayo has spoken, Kelvin has spoken. Who hasn't spoken? Beverly, yes, Beverly has spoken. Who has not spoken? Ellie has not spoken. Blessing has not spoken. Raphael?
No, excuse me. I'm just listening.
Okay. Sorry,
yeah, I'm there.
Can you please identify yourself?
Thank you so much.
Yes, please. What's your name, sir?
My name is Eli. I'm in Rwanda.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Thank you. It's good to hear you from Rwanda. Do you have anything to tell us from Rwanda, or you just want to listen?
Come again?
Do you have anything to tell us from Rwanda's experience? Rwanda is an interesting example. Can I ask you a question about Rwanda? Do you think Rwanda is practicing a democracy or a dictatorship?
May you come up with the question, please?
Do you think Rwanda is practicing a democracy or a dictatorship?
It is practicing democracy.
Okay. Why did you say so?
According to so many years, sorry?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yes, according to our history, Rwanda has passed in hard history. As you know, in '94 we had bad history, but government tried to work hard to rebuild the country, to do all the best to make sure the citizen and the reconciliations comes up. And if you see how things are going, we really appreciate our leadership.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's great. Okay, thank you, Ellie.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you for being here. So I think that in Nigeria today, we need to have a leader that can understand what governance is, that can understand what leadership is, that can be open to accepting differences of opinion, that can understand that Nigeria is a diverse nation with diverse people, and that all those people must be taken into account in running the country, that all those people's voices must be heard, that all those people, these people needs have to be accounted for. A leader that can be able to put any ego aside and understand that they are not gods. Not just one leader, all our leaders have to have a change of mind. Anybody that will be a leader that will move Nigeria forward, there has to be a leader that understands the concept of leadership. That leadership does not mean enriching yourself. That leadership does not mean lording your authority over people. That leadership means listening. That leadership means understanding differences of opinion and not prosecuting people for it. That leadership means being accountable to the people that has put you in authority. That's the leader that we need today. That's the leader that will take us forward as a nation. And if we can have a leader like that, then maybe we can start solving the problems terms of bad governance and bad leadership that we have in Nigeria. So I will close with the question. And my question to you would be, what will you do to contribute to good governance and leadership in Nigeria? Yes, our leaders are bad, but what are you doing in your own corner of the world? As a student, for example, in your school, what are you doing? Are you part of the problem, or are you trying to solve the problem? To contribute to nation building, what are you doing as a Nigerian? You know that as a Nigerian, there are some obligations that you have. You have to respect the flag, you have to respect authority, you have to conduct yourself in a way that would fly our flag high as a Nigerian. Are you contributing to the problem by being corrupt? Are you contributing to the problem by refusing to work with other people to ensure the collective good of the nation? So if you're not doing what you're supposed to do in your little corner of the world, in your little corner of the country, then the country cannot be better because everybody's misbehaving. And if you're misbehaving, then you don't have the right to tell people that they're misbehaving. They will not listen to you. So, but when you conduct yourself differently and you start standing out to say, hey, you guys, we need to behave properly, people will say, actually, yeah, we should listen to this person because we can see that they are actually doing things right. What are you doing in your little corner of the world? And finally, elections are coming up. How many of us have gotten our PVC? Are you going to say elections don't count? If they don't count, why are they buying your vote? If you're not going to vote for anybody, do you think that that's going to stop bad governance? If you choose not to put the person that you think will do things right, then the people that will do things wrong will continue to stay in power. As young people, what are we doing in our little corners of the world to make sure that we are not part of the problem? To start building a critical mass that tomorrow will come out and say, we want a new Nigeria, that will come out together with one voice as young people and say, this is a solution that we can offer. Remember that Nigeria today was built by young people. Are you aware? Think about it. Really think about it. Let's go back to the military regime. Go on. Buhari, Obasanjo, all of them, how old do you think they were when they started running this country the first time? Think about it. They were in their 40s. Is that not a definition of a young person? They were in their late 30s, in their 40s. Nigeria is built today on their efforts from all those years. Young people, they set the foundation of this country. And this is where we are today. So I say that to ask, are young people really the solution to the problem? Because if they started the problem, can we really say that they're different? Can we really say, looking at the way we are as young people today, looking at what we're doing, looking at how we organize ourselves, the things that matter to us? In Nigeria today, Big Brother is more popular than any of, like this conversation we're having now. If, for example, this was a conversation about Big Brother, I can assure you that this room would be very full. So what are we doing as young people? We are complaining, yes, the country is bad and it's really bad. Nobody's denying that fact. But our leaders today would always say young people don't know what they're doing. Are they right? If they are right, then they would use that as a basis to continue ruling the country the way they are. So we as young people need to get our act together and say that the foundation of the country that was laid, I wouldn't want to say rightly or wrong, by young people, we are going to come out and we're going to change for good, not for our sake, but for the sake of our children who are not yet born. Because if we continue like this, there'll be no country to speak of. There'll be nothing to leave for our children. In fact, there'll be no children to speak of because we all die here. We actually joke about that and say we die here. The truth is, if we don't do anything about Nigeria as it is, and none of us have anywhere else to go because poverty is in the land, where are you going to chop and run to? Are you going to steal? Are you going to kill somebody and run away? We're all here. We need to fix our home. If we don't fix it, the home would swallow all of us. And then the people that are destroying the home will just look at us with the country burning. They will take their private jets and they're off. Is that the Nigeria we want? Is that the government we want? Is that the leadership we want? Ladies and gentlemen, in your different corners, in your youth groups, please start having these conversations, start teaching this to the young people and start acting it out. Let's start being the examples so that when we start making these demands, they cannot come and say, what are you doing? We know you're not a good leader, so who are you to make noise? They cannot say that because you are a good example. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for giving me your time, for giving me your attention. And I hope that this has been illuminating and it has shed some light into your understanding of good governance and leadership. Thank you very much. If there are any questions, I will take them at this juncture.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate your audience and your time with us this evening. All right, please, if you have any question, kindly signify so we can take questions before our guests take our leave. Thank you. While we are typing or getting ready our question, please, you can reach out to us via our mail. It will be dropped on the chat box immediately for more information and the recording of the sessions. Please reach out to us and we'll get them across to you. Thank you so much. And also the certificate for participation in this program will be sent across to you via your mail. So it's an honorable time having you around. Thank you so much.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize I was muted. Sorry. I was saying thank you very much for having me. Thank you all for listening. It was really nice sharing the topics, talking about this. This is something that really gets me, I guess, angry when I talk about it because I feel that we can do so much better as a country. So thank you for listening to me rant, and thank you for contributing and making this a very enjoyable discussion.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, all our participants from across 6 countries. We see you. We appreciate you. It's nice having you around. We hope to do more together. We hope to engage ourselves together and see a sustainable result from this kind of discussion. Thank you so much. So at this junction, we would like to end the program and end this session. Thank you so much. My name is Emmanuel Ikediashi from Nigeria. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Emmanuel. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Goodbye.